Hello, everyone. I am super excited to welcome you all to a session on differentiation with Ms. Shalini Fate. My name is Anila Verma, and like most of you here, I'm an educator for over 10 years now. I can see many of you joining from different parts of the world. I would request you to kindly put your name and place from where you are joining. Before we begin, I would like to thank Ms. Ashna for giving all the educators a platform to share, collaborate, and increase our knowledge. Educators, please welcome Ms. Shalini Fate, who is an IB PYP coordinator for many years now. She is passionate about teaching and learning, and her goal is to continue learning and advancing in 21st century. So over to you, Ms. Shalini.
Thank you, Anila. I hope everybody is able to hear me. Am I audible? Anila, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. So, before I begin, I would like to thank Ms. Ashna for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on differentiation. And thank you, Anila, for such a wonderful introduction. I'm sure we'll have a good session here. And thank you, audience, all the educators from wherever you are for joining us today on this Sunday evening, taking your time out in the weekend and coming for this session. So, before I begin, let me put a disclaimer that we are going to talk about a topic which is very sensitive. We all know it is required, and we also know that it is not easy. And I am not an expert either, but I wanted to share some of my thoughts. I have done one workshop with Iris Center on differentiated instructions, and I also keep reading. So recently, I read a book on differentiation instructions by Carol Tomlinson. So when Miss Asna asked me, "Would you like to have a session on that?" I thought let's share whatever I have learned. And I'm sure many of you must be doing differentiation and might be knowing a lot of things that you are doing in the classroom, but let's refresh our knowledge and let's keep sharing what we know so we all can implement differentiation effectively in our classrooms. So, without taking much time, let me share my screen and we will begin.
I am equally excited.
Thank you, Anila.
I think you have to share again.
Yes, yes, I'm doing that. Is the screen visible now?
Yes,
Can
it
you see
is.
the screen? Yeah. All right. So we are going to talk about differentiated instructions. Um, and before we begin, I would like all of you. Oh, Anila, the slide is not moving again. Should I reshare?
Yes. I can see one educator, I think Pillai Kartika. She's saying hi to you.
Hi, Kartika. Welcome to the session. Can you
Here
see the
you go.
screen now?
Yes.
But it is still not moving. I did the same thing, Anila. I just a minute. Stop screen. Share. Share Chrome tab and
Never mind. I'll share. Just give me a bit.
okay.
Here you go.
Okay. Oh, I think. Wait, let me share with you the other one. Just give me a minute, okay?
The number of educators are increasing. I would like to request you, you can put your name, a brief introduction, and the place from where you are joining.
Okay, Anila, please share this one. Are you able to?
Yes. As an educator, we have been facing these kind of glitches. I
I
hope,
know we have learned a lot during last 2 years, but still, when it gets
yes.
stuck when it shouldn't. So
Is it visible?
yes, it is.
All
So
right.
we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so to begin with, I would like all of you to just examine this picture carefully and look at this garden and see how this garden as a metaphor relate relates to the culture of the school. What do you think? You can type in the chat box. Do we see some responses, Anila?
Not yet.
Okay, I think everybody is just thinking. So I know all of you can see a lot of flowers, different types of plants, and this is what we see in the garden. And the gardener exactly knows which plant needs what, which flowers need what kind of. Yes. Okay. Now we can see the chat box. Hello, everybody. Please share your thoughts. What do you see here? Thank you, Shahnaz, for joining. It's a
We start.
peaceful place. All right. This is a peaceful place. All right. Anything else? How do you compare this with your classroom? Reshma says different plants like different children. Okay. Different flowers blossoming at different times. Great. All right. So thank you for natural beauty. Yes, natural beauty. So when you compare this with your classroom, your children are in the classroom and they are also like natural beauty and they take time. They take their own time to blossom and they have their own requirement. But can you go to the next slide, Annie? Same ecosystem, but features are different. Yes. Next slide, please. Oh, a slide before this. Yes. So what are the implications? Like you all said that, the features are different and the plants are different. In our classroom, we see that different children are there and they have different needs and they blossom at their own time. They have their own pace. So what are the implications on student achievement? Any ideas? What happens when you have so many different types of children in your classroom who have different interests, who have different pace of learning, who have maybe different passions, children with different beauty like talent in them. Okay. So yes, I'm sure you all will agree that as children have different needs, we as educators need to know how every flower or every child will blossom. What is it that we can do to help them so that um, they grow beautifully. Okay, next slide. So let's reflect on this first. There are two statements, and you have to think what happens when this is happening and we are seeing this happening. So, if during the first 5 or 6 years of school, a child earns good grades and high praise without having to exert much effort, what are all the things he or she doesn't learn by the third or fourth grade? Next, please. Conversely, if during the first 5 or 6 years of school a child struggles so that he or she just barely passes the key tests or minimum standards, then what happens? So you have some children who don't have to make any efforts, maybe because the learning engagements are too easy for them, the challenges are too easy for them, and there are some children who are not getting what we are trying to teach them. So the result of this is, next please, the gaps, the learning gaps. Everybody is not getting what he or she needs. So, what do we do for this? For this, we need to do differentiation. So, in today's session, we are going to talk about why we need differentiation, what is differentiation, and what are different strategies and tools that we can use to implement or apply differentiated approaches or instructions in our classrooms. Next slide. So you must have seen many children in your classroom. All of us see this every day that there are some children who have behavioral issues. They don't want to work. They avoid working or taking any challenges, or they don't find themselves engaged enough or motivated enough. There are children who do not have enough prior knowledge, or they are not ready to take on the content that you are trying to teach them, or they lack the growth mindset. They just simply say, I can't do this. What is to be done, ma'am? Please tell me. I don't know. You tell me. So they want word to word, sentence to sentence support, and they do not want to write or do work independently. And result of this is underachievement, not only for the learners who are struggling, but also for the ones who have more potential and are not being challenged enough. Next. So why differentiate? So I'm going to show you some statements. All of us are going to read those statements and just tell me how many of those statements resonate with you. And you can just write the number in the chat box that, okay, I agree with all 10 of them, or I agree only with 8 of them, or 6 of them, or 5 of them. Can you just click on that, Anila? So the document will open. No, not that. The earlier side. Go to previous slide. Just click on this why differentiate. Oh, it won't open on your thing. Just okay. Anyways, so why differentiate? We already talked a bit about that because all children do not have the same interests. All children do not come from the same backgrounds. They have different cultural backgrounds. They have different linguistic backgrounds. They do not have English their first language. Some are able to read and understand the content that we present to them. Some of them are not. Some of them like to learn by using their eyes, and some of them like listen and learn. Some of them are kinesthetic learners. Okay, good. So, so let's read this. Because students have different backgrounds and interests, there is no guarantee that they all find the same things personally meaningful. Because students learn at different rates, pace, text, or task that challenges some students will frustrate or bore others. At any time, some students will think more concretely and some more abstractly, some more dependently and others more independently. It's sure It's a sure bet that students won't all opt to learn in the same way, make the same choices, or feel in control with the same parameters. What is helpful feedback for one student may not be for other. Each student needs to acquire strategies new to that student and use them in ways that are personally helpful. Classrooms that are not quite positive for some students are distinctly not so for others. Students will need varied scaffolding to achieve both common and personal goals. Can you take it a bit up? Yes, students will vary in the amount of collaboration they need and the sort of peers with whom they work best. Because they don't all know the same things at the same degree of competency, students will construct knowledge differently. So there are 9 statements, and you can write in the chat box that these are the reasons we need to differentiate. Do you agree with all 9 of them, or 6 of them, or 4 of them? Just type the number in the chat box. Yes. So, how many of those statements you agree with? Which are the reasons for why we need to differentiate? I am sure all of you will agree with most of them, and I agree too. How about you, Anila?
Yes.
Okay. So, let's now see what is differentiation. And before we talk about what is differentiation, let's discuss what differentiation is not. Okay, so in the next slide, we are going to talk about what differentiation is not. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so the first one says that differentiation is not creating separate lesson plans or tests for each level of learners. So it's not just about dividing the class into 3 levels. Okay, these are the weak learners, then these are the average ones, and these are the advanced ones. And I always have my activities planned like that. Because children might be at advanced level in one subject, but in another subject they have some challenges or difficulties, or something might interest them in a particular thing, and the same thing might not interest them at other times. So we have to see at different times how we match the learner with the learning. Second, it is not chaotic. Many a times when we try to plan different activities for different learners, there is so much of noise in the class, there is so much of um, chaos in the class, because children are trying to do their things. They do not have any specific guidelines. So it's very important for us to set some ground rules, be very specific in our instructions, and be very specific about what sequence of activities the children need to follow. The third one says differentiation is not just another way to provide homogeneous grouping. Like I talked in first point, that we should not make the groups always in the same way, or should not put always all good ones together or all weaker ones together. That will not help in learning. Number 4 says that differentiation is for students with only the individual educational plans, or only with the learners who are struggling. Differentiation can help each and every learner in the class if we plan the activities to challenge them enough, which will help them to get engaged in the activities and move forward from where they are now. Differentiation is not just tailoring the same suit of the clothes. That means that, like many a times we see that we are giving activities and then spontaneously trying to differentiate. For example, if you give children um, you give a simple question and some children answer it very easily, and then you ask those learners, okay, then you share some advanced information. But that is not differentiation. At first, why did we not think about that child, that he has greater potential, and we can give or we can plan some better activities which will challenge that child enough. So we have to think that way. That or sometimes we say that okay, out of 10 questions you can skip 5 because you are not or you will not be able to do 10. But what if those 5 questions are also important to learn and those are in your standard? So we can't just do away with those things. Or at times while grading, we become very lenient or strict depending on what kind of learner we are doing the grading for. But that is not the effective differentiation. Then what is effective differentiation? Let us see that in our next slide.
Shalini, we have a question. Somebody is
Mhm.
asking, what do you understand by homogeneous grouping?
Yes, homogeneous grouping means a grouping where all uh, children have either the same interests or they are all in the advanced level or they are all the weaker ones. So we are always putting them in the homogeneous group. Okay, all similar kind of learners we are putting in the same group and always making the grouping like that.
Great.
Next.
Are there any other different types of grouping that we do during the differentiation?
Yes, we
That's
can make different types of groups. So at times, maybe there are different types of learners. So we are going to see some examples also in our next slides. So at times when you try to match their interest, at times you see who can do what or what is the requirement. Sometimes you can put the mixed ability groups. So the learners who know more can help the other ones who need help. Or sometimes depending on what kind of project they have to do, you can do the grouping. The grouping and regrouping is dynamic in nature, and we have to think why are we grouping the children? What is the task? And how effectively they can be put together so that they can do their best. So, what is your definition of differentiation? Anybody? Would you like to just type in the chat box? Okay, let's see. You can keep thinking about it, and whenever you come up with any definition, you can just write in the chat box and we'll just read that on. Let's go to the next slide. Now we are going to talk about if the things that we talked about was not differentiation, then what is differentiated instruction? So there are some features of differentiated instructions that we are going to talk about. Number one, it is proactive. When we know all the children in our class, it is very very important for us to know what kind of learners we have in our class, what is their readiness level, what are their interests, what families they come from, what are the things that they are going through. Once we know all kind of learners, then we will be able to plan activities or learning engagements in such a way that will suit all kind of learners in the class, and it cannot happen spontaneously. For that we need to be proactive. We need to know the learners and plan the activities accordingly. Second, it is rooted in assessment. So every time you are planning a lesson, it should be based on the assessment data. Now, assessment, we do not mean to say just the summative assessment, end of the unit assessment, or the assessments which take place periodically. Assessments need to be formative in nature, ongoing, and every time. Maybe children sometimes do not even know that they are being assessed, but we are very observant as educators. We are looking at their knowledge, we are looking at their skills, we are looking at um, their mastery of skills, and then depending on what data we get from the assessment, we are planning our lessons. student centered. So it should not be teacher centered. The teacher plans that this is what I need to teach today and all children have to learn this only. So we have to keep the students at center and then see how we can plan our lessons so that every child feels safe to take risks and try and knows that there is someone to support me and my interests are being taken care of, and my pace of learning is being taken care of. It is organic. So many a times we make plans right in the beginning of the unit or before the unit, and we say that okay, I have put all the differentiated activities in my planner and I am done, and this is what I am going to follow in the entire unit of let it be unit of inquiry or maths or English, whatever we are planning. But it is quite organic in nature. Plan that you made for differentiation may or may not work. It depends on what kind of questions the children come up with, what kind of uh, demonstration of their skills and knowledge you are um, able to see in the class, and then change your plan. So its teaching is evolutionary. We have to keep thinking every minute, every hour, every day that what is the need for today, what is the need for tomorrow, how do I change my plan, will the same plan work, or I need to change it for the entire class or for a group of students or some individual students. So we have to keep thinking what is the requirement for next day or next lesson. Then only we will be able to do we will be able to cater to the needs of all learners. Again, it is a blend of whole class, group, and individual instruction. So it is not always one on one. It will depend on, sometimes you do the whole class instructions, sometimes you group them, sometimes you pair them, sometimes you need know that okay, all other children have understood, but this particular child needs my attention, some support, or maybe some higher challenge. So that is how we need to keep um, thinking that what kind of grouping will help in best learning to happen. Next slide, please. It is more qualitative than quantitative. So many a times it happens in the classroom that a child, because the child understand it well and can read well, instead of one book report, we say you do write two book reports. Okay, or instead of 10 sums, you do 20 sums because you can do it. But is that helping that child? Isn't it like a punishment? And is that helping the child to learn something else or something more, right? Or we can ask a child to do only the computation because he is struggling, and other children we say that okay, because um, you can do maths well, so you do the word problems. So we should not just increase the quantity of work in the name of differentiation, but should focus on quality. And the last one, it provides multiple approaches to content, process, and product. So we have to see what kind of content is appropriate for the learners in the classroom, whether it needs to be made complex or easier or scaffolded, and how it needs to be presented, and what will be the process depending on children's interest, what will be the process that we will follow for all learners. So that they enjoy the learning, they get engaged enough, and they get challenged enough. And what are the different options that we are giving for all the learners to present or demonstrate their learning? So, what are the options that we are giving them for making their products for demonstrating their learning? Okay, so what do we differentiate? We differentiate content, process, product, and environment. And for that, that has to be based on students' readiness, interest, and learning style. So before we talk about how we can differentiate content, product, or environment, we will see how we can understand the students in our class. How can we find out their readiness or different interests and learning styles. So, how to know your students? We have to keep seeing their work samples. we have to see the assessment data that we collect through the formative and summative assessments. And we have to also ask children, like, how can I determine that whether you understand a topic or not? One on one talks, we can discuss their interests, we can design a student interest inventory where you can have a Google form, or you can design a template where you are trying to find out what are the things that your children are interested in. There is a sample also. Anila, is it possible for you to open that?
I'll just try to open it.
Okay, so here my name is, I am so and so many years old, where I was born, about the family, about pets, or what is it that I like to do, what is another thing that I like to do. If I have to, if I could go anywhere in the world, where would I like to go? Or I want to be there because. So this is just a sample template. You can design your own according to your needs. What is it that you need to find out about your students? Design a template and give it to them, and keep that data with you, so that you know that you have to plan the learning engagements according to their interests and needs. Can go back to the presentation. Next slide, please. We can ask children one on one, like, how can I find out more about what you need to learn best, or how can I get to know you better, or how can I use information about you to help you learn, or um, how do I know whether you are understanding the topic or not? How can I use information about you to help you learn? Next, we also have to make students understand why we are doing differentiation in the classroom. Sometimes they feel that, why is ma'am giving something else to my friend and something else to me? So it is very, very important that the students, and not only the students, but the parents also understand why differentiation is required and how it helps all the learners or children to learn. So we have to discuss with children, how is it fair if we are all doing different things to help us learn? Discuss with them. Is it fair that students work on different activities or assignment? If yes, how? Why are we doing that? Is it fair that I spend more time working with some students than with others? Or is it fair that students are graded in same way although they are working on different assignments? When the students understand that why it is being done, why the task is different for them and different for their friends, and how it is helping everybody to learn, they will cooperate. Also, we need to make them understand that, how do we measure success? Do grades always reflect the success and the hard work and effort put behind it, or some people are just, or some students are just getting it with ease and some students are struggling with it? So how do we measure success? Um, Isn't success like putting in effort? So even if a struggling learner is putting efforts and good efforts, that is success for him, right? Recognize that success is equal to working hard and growing, which ultimately leads to reaching and exceeding your goals, right? So we have to talk about growth mindset. We have to talk about how failure helps us learn. Next slide, please. Now, what should be the classroom instruction like? We can work in small groups. So students can work with small groups with other students, or they can work with the teacher. They can work with teacher in small groups or individually or in pairs. They can spend different amounts of time on the tasks to learn it, or working with different materials to learn the content. So materials will be provided by the teacher depending on what is the readiness level or what is the interest that different children have in the class. Next. Now, how to organize the classroom? When you have to plan a lot of different activities for different learners, your classroom will look chaotic. For that, we need to take care of certain things like whatever activities we are planning, those have to be directly connected with or consistent with your instructional goals, or we have our scope and sequence. We know what is it that we are trying to teach and how these activities, these are not just for the sake of making the child happy, but these will help the child learn and grow and reach the learning outcomes that we have set for the class. The class has to be congestion free and so wherever you think the high traffic areas are, where children are going to reach out for their material or notebooks or worksheet, that has to be congestion free. So there has to be free movement, easy access to reach or see students. So teacher should be in such a place, or the furniture should be organized in such a way that the teacher can move around and reach out to every student and is able to see every student or group of students if they are working in the group. When you are putting the displays or presentations, they should be at the eye level and clearly visible uh, for the learners. Readily accessible teaching material and student supplies. So we have to see that if we have already, like we talked about being proactive, we talked about giving them different content. So if we know that we are going to talk about or teach them a certain things, so have we already prepared the material according to their needs? For example, if a child struggles in reading, have we scaffolded the information and have we put the information in easier or a simpler method so that the child can understand, or what is it that we have put for the child for the support, or have we thought of some reading material or some challenging tasks which will challenge the advanced learners also. Similarly with the student supplies, so all these things have to be first ready and then keep it in a place which is um, keep it in a place where it is readily accessible by the student. Similarly for the supplies that they need. Now, to make our class less chaotic, we have to establish rules or essential agreements that we all do. Those rules or agreements have to be positively stated. Less in numbers, have to be simple, specific terms, so children exactly know what is expected out of them. And because they themselves are making agreements, we can just guide them how to frame the essential agreements and how to be very specific about them, and how to ensure that when they are not following, we are asking them to see if they followed the essential agreement, and if not, why, and then how will they follow it the next time. So we have to clearly convey the expected behavior. When they are working in the small groups or pair, we have to ensure that the noise level is at uh, appropriate. So we have to, we can use a spotlight where green light says that okay, this noise level I'm okay with, or if yellow light shows or yellow indicator shows, then that means that noise is getting louder. Or if it is too loud, then you can show the red indicator, and children will know that they need to adjust the noise level in the class. This is for working in groups, whether they are working in small groups or pairs, and they don't have to raise their hands and tell every time whether they have understood or not. So if you have these green, yellow, and red indicator, and if the green is on top, the children can just say that, I have understood, and or our group has understood the task and we do not need help. Yellow means we have understood it a bit, but we are unsure, and some uh, help is required, or we are not sure if we need help. And red on top means help, so teacher needs to go there and help and support the group or the learner there. Next, when you know that some students will finish their tasks easily and before time, then you have to keep some anchored activities um, for them. For example, if it is a reading class and if a child finishes reading before everybody else in the class, then we can have options like you can read silently, or write in your journal, or you can review the vocabulary for next assignment, or maybe work on the activity which is kept there on the reading center. So there could be different options that you can think of, because you know your learners best and you know what will challenge them or what will be the next complex activity for your advanced learner. Accordingly, you can plan and keep the options so that the children will know what is it that they need to do next instead of distracting the class. Next slide, please. Getting and turning the material. So for that also you need to see if it is a whole group instruction, how will they pick up the material, how will they keep it back, or small group instructions. The whole group instruction, maybe students picks up the material when entering the room and puts it back. If it is a small group instruction, you can ask one member from the group to take the material and give it back. You can have learning centers, so they know students, they collect from the color coded folders located at the center. So you can set up different rules for different types of grouping or individual activities. Next. Now, as I said, that differentiation is not only required for the learners who are struggling, but it is also required for the advanced learners. Why? Because advanced learners, if we do not plan proper activities or appropriate challenges for them, they will become mentally lazy, because their muscles, if we do not work out our muscles, they will become lazy. Similarly, if the children's intellectual ability is not challenged enough, they will become mentally lazy. Or advanced learners may become hooked on the trappings of success. They feel that I take little bit of effort and I am always successful, and they will think that I can be successful without making any efforts. And when they actually do not get the success anytime in life, then that is very, very difficult time for them. They kind of become perfectionist and they do not want to uh, fail anytime in life. And when they fail, it becomes very, very difficult for them to um, accept that failure and work on that. Advanced learners may fail to develop a sense of self efficacy. They can have good self esteem, but self efficacy comes when they put enough efforts. And when the tasks are very, very easy for them in the class, they will not develop a sense of self efficacy. So, what should we do? We should always keep raising the ceiling of expectations. We should make clear what is excellence for them. Like excellence for the advanced learners could be a little different than the other learners in the classroom. And as you raise your expectations, you should also see if they need any kind of support. Or we have to also ensure that we are not just making the activities more rigorous, we also have to ensure that there is a balance between rigor and the joy in learning. Similarly, we also have to, next slide please, think of the struggling learners. So when they are struggling, they feel that they cannot do things, and they kind of either they sit quietly or they start seeking your attention in some other ways. So what is it that we should do with the struggling learners? We should always look for some positives in them. Every learner will have something good. So we have to appreciate that learner for any positives that the learners has have, and don't let what's broken extinguish what works. So we don't have to always focus on what a child cannot do. We have to see what is it that the child can do. What is it that child is interested in, and then that we can use for um, making them understand the new concept. Pay attention to the relevance. Every child wants to know why he or she needs to learn that. So if we make learning relevant for them, they will take more interest. Go for powerful learning or use many avenues of learning. So how are we providing them different options um, for processing the information, or for gaining the acquiring the knowledge, or uh, presenting or demonstrating their skills and knowledge, and see with the eyes of love. Every child needs to know that you love them, and you do not uh, it's not that the teacher doesn't like me because I cannot do certain things. So all the learners have to be, how much time, have to have this feeling that my teacher loves me. So this is a 6 minutes video. We can just have a look at this video and see how the teacher is differentiating instruction for the learners.
Continue working on the rest of the problems independently, I'd like to make sure that you kind of are on the right track with number 3. So I'm going to ask a little shifting to go on in the classroom. I'm going to pair you up differently and see if you can come up with a strategy to solve the problem, or maybe you already did come up with the same strategy. So if you can just please group with the person I put you with. Chris, I'd like you to group with Ashley. We can get up, we can move around. Everyone stand up because we're going to be moving. Chelsea, I want you to hook up with Claudia. Josbel, go ahead and hook up over here with Hector. Ernesto with Annabella. Chrisnell with Daniela. And Danielle with Helen, right over here. Okay, thank you for adjusting. Work with the partner that I have chosen for you. Okay, I'm looking for a couple things. I'm looking to see that, if I can just have your attention before you get started. You're so eager, that's great. I want you to identify variable, what variable you're choosing, what you're looking for, okay? And see if you can come up with an equation together and be ready to explain to your group. The purpose behind the pairing was for the students to get a different perspective of how to solve the problem. And of course, if one was a little higher level than the other, they can explain it to them, almost like a peer tutor. Maybe circling things in the question to help you. Who are we talking about in this question? Okay, circle that name.
And Kyoko.
Kyoko, okay, 2 people. Pick a letter to represent.
Kyoko and Tochi.
Exactly.
Okay, the K for Kyoko and the T for.
Okay, so together, their ages equal to how much?
Um,
The sum of their ages, the sum of Toshiko's and Kyoko's ages together equals 79.
okay, so 4 plus 79.
Well, Kyoko and Toshiko equals 79.
Okay. She's gonna be 79
Mm-hmm.
times
Mm-hmm.
Kyoko's is 4.
Kyoko is, well, we don't know that yet, but we know Kyoko is K, because you told me Kyoko,
So it's gonna.
okay?
So
So K,
K
okay? Now tell me what Toshiba is. What does it say Toshiba is?
4
4
years old.
more
Yeah, 4.
than
Um, Kyoko.
twice as old as Kyoko. Do you know what Kyoko is? No.
No.
Plus twice as old. So 2K
Okay, 2K
plus, right, 4. Good job, Josbel. Okay, so that represents, who is that?
Tochi.
Good job. That's Toshiba. Okay, now combine like terms. Hector, continue to explain how you combine like terms, please. While I was doing informal assessments walking around, I wanted to pick on the students to come up to the board. First, I wanted one that would know how to clearly explain the problem to the students. But then I also wanted to pick a student that perhaps had a little bit of learning difficulty understanding the lesson, so that way they could be assisted by maybe the peer that was standing next to them, or they could even call up their partner to the board to assist them. And then I wanted to pick somebody that had an aha moment. I saw somebody really struggling when I was doing informal assessments. Then all of a sudden they got placed on that board and they knew exactly what they were saying. They were able to clearly communicate with the rest of the students what the problem was asking and communicate that effectively with the students to solve it. Josbel, let's start with you. I want you to first tell me what your variables are.
The variables are um, uh, K and T,
Okay.
and over here I put 1 plus 2 is 3, and then I need help here.
You need help? All right. You can call on your partner to help you. You worked with your partner, work together. Assist him in the process.
Yes, I should strike 4 to 79. Give me 75.
We can fast forward,
And
Anila.
so,
We have just 10 minutes to
3
go.
to 75. Give me.
Because we were talking, and I'm like, okay, I was so lost for such a long time. And then it was like, yes, finally, you know what she's talking about.
What?
Can we go back to the presentation? So you saw how the teacher was differentiating the instruction and looking at all the learners and seeing the benefits of the group work. Next slide, please. So how do we differentiate the content? Here are some examples, like we can give the student choice of topics or choice of resources, or we can see their reading level. Can you open this resource, Anila? So this is from the course that I did from Iris Center. So they have given a lot of strategies for differentiating content. Is it opening or not? Yes. So you see here, can you take it down, please? Right. So when we have to differentiate the content, we can plan tiered activities based on their readiness or provide a variety of materials or presentations, styles or scaffolding. You can open any of them. For example, let's say open this tiered content. So you see here one example is given of mathematics, how the content has been provided to different kinds of learners. So group 1 has been asked by the teacher to read the first 3 pages of the book and illustrate the addition of various time units, including Roman numerals. The student work in pairs to complete a worksheet which contains some simple problems involving the addition of time units, including some which are written in Roman numerals. Next, the teacher reads with the students the remainder of the book. So here teacher is providing a lot of support. In the next group, the children are again asked to read first 3 pages of the book. The teacher illustrates the addition of various time units. The students work in pairs to complete a worksheet which contains more difficult problems involving the addition of time units, most of which are written in Roman numerals. So here the students are asked to do more independent work, but teacher is providing a little bit of support wherever it is required. Whereas if you see in the group 3, students are again asked to read 3 pages of the book. They work in pairs to complete a worksheet problem on various difficulty levels. So here, without the teacher's help, they are being able to do the things. They have been given more complex tasks, and the teacher will just check it at the end. Go back. So maybe later on I can share the PDFs of these resources with the ones those are interested, because we are left with only 10 minutes time and we have to finish this presentation. So next, go to the process differentiation. Again, for process differentiation, we have to use different manipulatives or graphic organizer, or the way the children would like to process the information. Accordingly, we need to select the choices for them, and how and who they would like to work with. We can also design some learning centers in the classroom and then decide how the children will move around those centers to process the information. If required, we can decide whether the children will read from textbook, or they will need different types of pencils or colors, or they will need to use technology, or you have any learners who have some visual impairment, so will they need the bigger fonts. So we have to understand that how the children will need different things to process the information um, depending on their situation. You can again open that link, Anila, and from that link only you can go to the product part also, the same link. So again, here you see the readiness, interest, and learning profile. So we can again have tiered activities based on their readiness. So we can have different kinds of processes to be followed. We can have learning centers. Again, learning centers could be created according to their learning style, interest, or readiness. Interactive journals. So interactive journals are like teacher writes some prompts and the children have to answer those prompts, and teacher keeps giving feedback and feed forward and keeps checking where the children are reaching. Graphic organizer, so teachers can give them some template or ask them to use graphic organizer to organize their thinking or thoughts. Jigsaw activities, this is very interesting, many of you must be following also, but we can just have a look at this activity. Can you please open that? Yeah, go down. So this jigsaw activity works like, go down again. We have some diagrams there. Yes. So what the teacher does is, suppose there are 30 students in the class or 25 students in the class, she puts them into different groups. Okay. And then she chooses one leader in each group. Then in each group, the topic that is being taught is divided into 6 parts, and teacher assigns each part of that topic to the students based on what they are interested in. So it could be based on either um, their readiness level, interest, or their learning style. So in each group, then there are six children working on six different things. Next step, now everybody is researching or finding information about those six different things. And after that, in step 5, go down, they are coming back to their uh, regional group. Once they come to he allows the student 30 minutes of the class. So here everybody has found out information on different parts, and then they go to the expert group. So in every group you can see there is a red part. So that means one child is working on one particular thing. Now all the children working on that particular thing come together. So now there are six expert groups, and they talk to each other about their findings, and they become the expert in that part of the topic. And then they come to the original group and share what they have learned. So this activity works well. We have tried this, and children quite enjoy doing this. You can go to the from here only. Can you access differentiate product number 7? Does it open from there only for you, Anila? The page number 7 from here to your left, or you have to go to the next slide. Maybe you'll have to go back to the presentation and open the next slide. So again, products, we all do it. Some children make their PPT presentations, or they can do the role play. They can make posters. They can do anything. We can also give them tic-tac-toe activity. So here there are different options um, in a grid, and we can ask them to. Maybe you can open only, Anila. We'll be able to see that example. Tic-tac-toe. Yes, go down. So here for the character, for the theme, for the setting, different options are given, and children can take any option for the characters. They can take any option for the setting. They can take any option for the theme, and then uh, write their story. So this is how um, we can use this strategy to differentiate the product. Go back. There are many strategies and tools that we can use to differentiate either the process, the content, or the product. Go to the next slide. So how do we plan lesson? Again, for planning lesson, we have to know what is the goal, what are the learning outcomes that we have selected, how do we assess their knowledge and skills, and based on that, we do the differentiation. Next slide. We always have to remember that we don't have to convert all lessons at once. So less is more. We can begin with using some strategies and tools, and we can look at the requirement for our class. What is the requirement which suits best to my class? Should I start differentiating the content first, or process, or small things at a time, and then we can keep building on that. We can always remember that we have to be flexible. We have to always remember the learning goal, because all children at the end of the day have to achieve those learning goals. We can go a phase higher or lower, but every child should be able to show some growth, some progress with our effort and with our differentiated instructions. And always remember that it is not only for the struggling students, but it is for all the students if we cater to their interests and needs. Next. Non-negotiables, so we have to remember some non-negotiables, that if we are starting to differentiate the instructions, it shouldn't be for a day or a week, it has to be sustainable. So planning has to be done that way, so that we are able to see the results of the differentiated instructions that we are following. Flexibility is again very, very important. It will not work if we put all the things in our planner and want to follow the same things. We will have to make spontaneous changes. We will have to keep seeing the data that we get from the assessment and be flexible with our planning depending on the needs. At the end of the day, differentiation should always have the student at the center. So when we keep the student at the center, we will be able to make the right decisions at the right time. And we also have to see success to effort ratio is balanced. So every child should be able to put, we should put every child um, out of their comfort zone. So if they can do whatever they can do, we have to see that what could be the next challenge for them. Now, the same challenge cannot be the challenge for a learner who is already at the advanced level. So, we will have to see what are the appropriate challenges which are rigorous enough and interesting enough and engaging enough and also significant enough for them, and they see the learning happening. Next. So, that is it. I would like to conclude my presentation with this poem, which is again from Carol Tomlinson's book, Differentiated Instructions. It says, push me, see how far I go, work me till I drop. Then pick me up, open a door, and then make me run to it before it closes. Teach me so that I might learn, then let me enter the tunnel of experience alone. And when near the end, I turn to see you beginning another's journey. I shall smile. Thank you. Next slide. So there was a little reflection, but I don't think the time is there. So I would hand over to Anila and she would like to conclude the session.
Thank you, Ms. Shalini. It was really comprehensive and insightful, and I have a lot of takeaways today. For example, the puzzle and tic tac toe. I think I'm definitely going to use that strategy soon in my
Right.
class. Yeah.
So there
And
are a
before,
lot of strategies, but because of the time constraint, we couldn't discuss or share. So maybe I can download the PDFs and share with whoever wants to use them.
yeah, before we go away, here is a token of the learning that you gave us. Token of appreciation. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Asna ma'am, for this.
Before we go away, here is an exit ticket for everyone to fill in. If you want to share your learning, please go to this link and fill up the form, and you can also share your learning with us. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,